I'm not great at most hit scans. I'm better at projectiles, honestly.
Uh-huh. Yep, so YouTube will just be a minute or
Alright.
so while I'm looking for something to talk about.
Be careful out there.
Okay, first thing noticing, and I'll just start calling things out as I see them, and I will go more in depth afterwards or whenever we see them start to repeat. But
Alright.
right there, just watch the spam jumping. So spam jumping is just when you go jump, 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 jump. It's not a super high priority thing, but it just is going to make it, especially the higher up in ranks you go, it's going to be easier to headshot you when you're doing that. So just
Gotcha.
not too terrible of a thing, just something to keep your eye on.
I think it's a fidgety thing. I always have to be pressing something.
Yeah.
So I'm just finding ways to figure that out.
Okay.
But that's probably gotten me killed a couple of times before.
Alright,
Ow!
so
Okay.
I'm noticing a lot of overhealing. So overhealing is just healing anytime someone's full HP, and keep in mind that's time that you're basically wasting, right? That's time where we could be swapping. So anytime you get to full HP on someone, you want to be immediately swapping the damage boost and then looking for somebody else to heal or something else to do, right?
Gotcha.
That way we're not just wasting time, because we could be using that time to, you know, be aware of our environment, to go for reses, to heal somebody else. It's just time that we're wasting if we're just healing someone when it's not doing any healing.
I'm usually better about that. I did just wake up like a half hour ago, so I'm still... I survived that. I don't understand how I survived that.
Kind of booped you around there.
Yeah. Luck. Alright. Okay. How many players? Okay.
Onwards to victory.
We've got 4 here. Everyone's coming in. I'll try to do some talking as well, so that it's not completely quiet and I can sort of explain what I'm thinking.
I mean, it's up to you. I mean, you don't need to if that's something you don't care about. Okay. I'm noticing a lot of times where we're you know, I'll talk after the fight's done. One moment.
Is it? It's just him. Okay. Let's do this then.
This is not the end.
Alright.
Let's get you back out there. I've got you. Enemy turret ahead. Watch yourself.
Okay, so
That
I'm
was unlucky.
noticing a lot of times where we'll just kind of not notice when people are dying and we won't go for reses. So first off, keep in mind that res is a very powerful ability. It's basically like having a second ultimate, and if we're not using it often, then we're not getting a ton of value out of it. So you want to be using it as often as possible. No, you don't want to go kill yourself with it, but there's been a lot of instances where people have died kind of next to us and we've kind of not noticed. So we'll talk a little bit more in depth on that. I guess the fight's done here. So, you know, every time someone dies, you know, make sure we're eyeing up the bodies, right? So we're paying attention to kill feed when people are dying, looking around ourselves, paying attention to just the fact that people are dying, right, is a big one, is just paying attention to the fact that there are actually dead people. And the second one is just paying attention to, can I go for the rest, right? Like, is it possible for me to do it?
I couldn't see any possible reses that I could go for without risking.
Yeah, so
getting
I mean,
wrecked.
if you feel like in that there were definitely a bunch of them, like so far that I've noticed that, like, if you would like me to, we can go back into a replay and I can show you them.
This Doomfist is really.
So when you're struggling with the Doomfist here, right? He's probably going to be flanking, which is what he just did to you. So now I was in the middle of talking, but what we want to make sure we're doing is we want to be paying attention a lot more to our flank angles and listening and watching for them, because we know that there's going to be Doomfist on them. So when Doomfist comes at us, we can jump, like fly away from him. We can super jump if you're aware of the tech. If you're not, then we can go over that.
Yeah, I'm aware of it.
Let's get you back out
So just listening and watching for the flanks, and then running away when he's coming for us.
Don't stop now.
I think part of it is the fact that I know someone is watching, so I'm like focused on 10 things at once.
Kümmere mich dich.
So I just gotta... okay.
Support has arrived. Onwards to
Alright.
victory.
Yeah, nice res.
Let's get you back in the fight.
Enemy turrets. Let me show you how it's done.
Okay, turret's down.
Enemy
You needed a doctor?
bedankt.
Powered up.
Barrier in place. Enemy contact. How about a little extra heal?
Let me get you patched up.
Barrier is unstable.
You should be at peak performance level.
I'm overloaded.
I'm taking care of you.
Is that melody? Let them up.
This is not your
Okay,
time.
nice res.
Damage boost engaged. Don't let up on them.
Regen burst activated.
Routing navigation systems to defense.
Cover me.
Barrier. Stretch barrier.
Okay, yep. So I'm accumulating a few things we'll talk about after this game is
Alright.
done here.
Probably for the best.
Holy danger.
Healing stream engaged. Enemy
Ah, there's someone behind me. Nice.
Stay down.
Alright. Hammond. Yay! Good job, Hammond.
Valkyrie online. Hello.
Okay. People are respawning. Alright.
Your support has arrived.
Hello.
This is not the end.
Get in here. Meteor strike.
Onwards to victory. Where does it hurt?
Yeah. I was trying to get a line of sight of that turret, but Doomfist kept on knocking me back into it.
So yeah, well that's one other thing there that we'll talk about after we're done here that
Yeah.
I kind of found. So we're
Starting over
just
from the
kind of
beginning.
because there's bigger topics I don't want to be talking about while you're playing.
Gotcha.
Immortality. Enemy contact. What is that melody?
Like for example, this is probably a very easy res that we could be going for. That
It
we're just
is. I
kinda-
was waiting for them to back off a bit. I was just about to...
Yeah. So I mean, like.
Because the Doomfist was there. And I
Okay,
did not
so-
want to try that when the Doomfist was there.
Yeah, so why don't, after we're done here, where we can just go back and talk about, like, you can give me the
Okay.
replay code and we can go through a bunch of them, but there's definitely a lot of them so far that we probably could have gone away with that we're not, and we'll talk about how to tell that, right, and, like, how we can know whether or not we can go for reses or not.
Hello.
Okay, bye. I guess me and Lucio are friends. Okay.
Damage amplified.
Good choice. Regen up.
Where does it hurt?
Tactical visor activated.
Oh,
Enemy down.
soldier, don't die me, don't die me. There we go.
Powered up.
Nice.
I'm taking care of you. Onwards to victory.
Whew.
60 seconds remaining.
Let's get you back out there. Over me.
Meteor strike.
Enemy turret neutralized.
Is approaching its destination.
You needed a doctor.
Let them up.
I think his body fell off the...
Yeah, I
Fell off
don't,
of
it
the
was not
map.
letting you fly to it from there? That was weird.
No. I think his body's
Seconds remaining.
off the map.
Alright.
If there's one thing that I do that sometimes works out and sometimes doesn't, it's those ballsy reses. And why did I go that way?
10 seconds remaining.
Okay. So one more thing we can talk about, while game's going on before we exit out here. So, just in our ultimates as well, make sure we're not overhealing too much. So, damage boosting your ultimate is pretty important. As a
Right.
good example or analogy, also don't get into a game. We're gonna go over a lot of stuff here. So, as a good analogy, Bongo Orisa's ultimate is the highest winning fight ultimate in the game. So damage boosting your entire team is pretty powerful. So
Right.
basically, want to be making sure that we are damage
I'll
boosting
be
a little bit
watching
more
over you.
often in our ult, especially when like people aren't low. Because there'll be sometimes like where, for example, someone's just like down like one little itsy bitsy bar like that, and we'll swap over to healing to heal it up. Make sure that we are focusing more on the damage boost and we're in our ultimate, and then we're healing if it's necessary, like if somebody's critical or someone's in danger or a bunch of people need healing, right? But if that's not the case, damage boost more often. Okay, so now we're gonna go
Right.
over a lot of different things here. So far, probably the biggest thing I'm noticing being a problem is your awareness of paying attention to what's going on around you. And that's a very general topic, so we'll go into more specifics on like what one's within awareness. So first off, let's talk about kill feed watching. So or how to tell whether or not you're winning or losing a fight. So how to tell whether or not you're winning or losing a fight comes down to watching kill feed, and this is a part of awareness of paying attention to what's happening around you. So kill feed's top right corner of your screen. How it works is basically when you are up 1 to 2 people, that is an advantage, right? When we have an advantage, we can play
Right.
more aggressively, we can go in more because they have less people to punish us. When we are up 2 to 3 people, that is a one fight, right? At that point, we no longer want to be using ultimates because that would just be overkill, and there were instances where we won fights and we would ult after that, right? Where it's just kind of wasting it at that point. Now, when we've won a fight, we want to get super aggressive just to go in and finish people off and get stagger kills. Now, it also goes the exact opposite way. When you are down 1 to 2 people, that is a disadvantage, right? That doesn't mean that you lost the fight yet, but you might want to play a little bit more passive because you're losing the fight. When you are
Gotcha.
down 2 to 3 people, that is a lost fight. No ults again. And again, I saw us using a Valk like in a fight that had been lost, right? So we want to make sure we're not doing that because that's going to help us use them in better circumstances and areas. And then on top of that, want to make sure we're getting out if possible, and if not possible, let them kill you. That way we're not staggering ourselves. And you've been playing the game for a while, so I assume you're familiar with the term staggering.
Staggering, staying alive only they get killed as soon as everyone respawns, thereby making them wait longer for you to respawn.
Basically dying late, right? It's just a simplified
Yeah.
version of it. And it just, they might have to wait for you, or they could even just go in without you, and then now they're going in at a disadvantage, and then they might end up staggering again and again and again and again, right?
And ends up in an endless loop.
Exactly, right? Kind of a stagger train. So, now moving on, that's awareness. That's part of awareness, right? Now moving on to other parts. We'll talk in a moment after we get out of here. We'll go back to that replay and go over some of the reses we could have gone for, and that'll be additional awareness that we'll
Gotcha.
discuss. But on top of that, let's see, where are some other parts of awareness? Making sure we're paying attention to, kind of where's our team at, and then where's the enemy team at. I'm noticing a lot of times when we are healing people, we kind of don't pay attention to where our enemies are at, and then that results in our deaths a lot of the time. So, for example, here, just keep in mind that we can be healing this person and damage boosting this person while looking in the complete opposite direction, right? We can be doing this exact same thing. We can see his health bar. We can tell, where they're at with our beam. We can, get damage system, heal them just perfectly fine. Now, we might want to look at them once in a while here, but we don't have to be staring at them, whereas a lot of the time we are staring at our team, and we're never looking at the enemy team, and then that's resulting in a lot of deaths, because now we're not aware of where's the Doomfist at, right? Where's he coming from? Where's the enemy team? And then, therefore, we're dying a bunch, and I'd probably say there are a bunch of deaths that we died from that were very preventable, right? That we could have done something to prevent, right? We died because, of awareness. So that's another part of awareness is team composition dictates play style, so pay attention to team compositions. What is your team comp? What is the enemy team comp, right? So paying attention to the enemy team comp, right? If they have a Doomfist or a Tracer or a Genji or like any flanker characters or a dive, we need to make sure paying attention to our flanks more often, paying attention to the guys who can contest us, right? That's pretty important. So we'll talk a little bit more on awareness, but moving on to some other topics. Just you say you're aware of how to super jump. just I didn't really see it done at all. So maybe just if you are aware of how to do it, make sure we're using it more often, and specifically, in two different instances, right? The two main purposes of super jumping is to, one, take high grounds, which I didn't see us doing very much, which we'll talk about in a moment about why we want to do that, but make sure we're taking high grounds with super jump. And then secondly is we can super jump out of danger. So like, let's say for example, a Doomfist is punching at us or slamming at us or
Gotcha.
something, right? It's a very easy way to just get up in the air, and then how is Doomfist supposed to get you there, right? He's a very close range character, so we can't really reach you when you're doing that. So that's just an example of what we can do. Besides that, I've noticed sometimes with our flying that we would accidentally go a little bit too far into the enemy team or too far on the open. So just be careful and be aware of the of flying and then jumping. That this will launch you past the person you're flying to, whereas if we just
Right.
fly normally, this will just bring us to the person, right? Sometimes we just end up flying past and then kind of into dangerous situations, which flying past the person is definitely useful, because let's say we're trying to get from here over to that piece of cover, right? We can fly past without having to just walk through the open. But alternatively, we don't want to be flying and then accidentally launching ourselves into enemy team, which would happen sometimes, where we just kind of run into the enemy team, right? So we want to make sure we're being careful with that. Now, moving on to positioning, right? So positioning, this is just general positioning. This applies to every character in the game, most FPS games out there. If we are standing right here, right, and there's a whole enemy team standing over there, it takes us 1, 2, 3 seconds to get behind cover. Now, you can't shoot through solid objects, so from here we're safe. But in that time it took us to walk here, we died, right?
Yeah.
Because they're all shooting at us. Now, from here, it takes us half a second to get behind cover. That is 6 times faster than when we are over there, which makes this positioning much, much better, right? So good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover. So we want to make sure that we're constantly standing near cover, but then also at the same time, keep in mind that Mercy doesn't need to shoot at anybody, right? Mercy oftentimes doesn't need to be in line of sight of the enemy team. So instead of just standing next to cover, Mercy can take it one step further and just be behind cover, because we can do healing and damage boosting the exact same from here without letting the enemy team even see us, right? Whereas a lot of the times we would kind of do the same thing, but we'd stand here, right? And then now they can just see us, shoot at us, spam at us, snipe us. Now we're taking extra damage, getting killed more often, when it's really not necessary to do so. Now, if we're trying to be aware of our surroundings, maybe we can peek once in a while just to see what's up with everyone, see where everyone's at. But we might want to use cover a lot more often, right?
Gotcha.
There's a lot of different types of cover, right? We can use slopes like so. We can use pillars, right, in between shots when we're reloading. But of course, Mercy doesn't do that. But on Junkrat, right, when we are when we're just trying to negate damage, right, we have corners where we can do the same thing. Random objects we find sitting around like this. You can use the payload like that, right? Pillar, corner, doorway, corner. Okay, and then on top of that, all of high ground acts as natural cover, right? So the entire thing, they can see us, now they can't see us. You can see us, now they can't see us, right? So all of high ground acts as natural cover. On top of that, as an additional layer of survivability, most characters in the game can't get up to you, right? And then the ones that can need to use abilities, which gives you even more, which means that now they're out of, abilities, and you can just run away, right, or fly to somebody else. So want to make sure we're taking high grounds much more often. High grounds also give you a ton of visibility. We can see over here, over there, over here, over there, and down there.
So, what are your thoughts on using your teammates as cover in a way? Kind of
No,
moving among them. Because you're healing them constantly, so if they're taking bullets for you, you're basically healing them right back up. So essentially you have
so
extra cover in that regard. Because I end up doing that a lot.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely a valid option. That's not something that you want to be doing all the time. So, let me say it like this. So, cover is just a more efficient version of that, because shots can go through. There's guns and abilities that go through people. It can very easily go around those people. And then using cover is just gonna be a lot more effective. So cover usage is always gonna be the #1 thing. And then, for example, let's say your teammate died. Let's say we're standing behind this guy, right, and this guy dies. Now we're just out in the open, right, and then we die next. Whereas it'd just be much more efficient if you just did this from behind cover than if we were doing this, from behind him. So if like you can definitely use your teammates to body block for you
Your
in
support
certain
has
situations,
arrived.
but it's not going to be every situation ever that you want to be doing that. Okay, so so all the visibility, low ground, we can't see over there, not over there, not over there, not over there, and none of the high grounds, right? So we lose out on a ton of visibility to where we could be healing people pretty easily from like pretty much anywhere on the map. Okay,
Right.
now have you adjusted your beam sensitivity at all on Mercy?
Have beam sensitivity? Yes.
Yeah. So do you
I'm
know where
trying
it's
to
at currently?
remember. Toggle beam. Toggle beam. No, that's not it.
No.
Beam sensitivity is at 100. So no,
100.
I
Okay.
don't. I have not.
So are you aware of what that does?
No.
No? Okay, so beam sensitivity is basically, think of it this way, it's, the minimum is 10, and when you have it on 10, you have to be staring directly at somebody for the beam to register. You can't be off of their body. But when you have this at 100, it's going to be very lenient and not very specific to who you want it to be on, and therefore in a big clumps of
Gotcha.
people, it might be pretty inaccurate. So you probably want to be lowering that. That way you can more accurately target people in crowds and when they're on top of each other. And probably a good range would be like 50 to 70-ish, depending on roughly on how confident you are in your mechanics, right?
Where does
Just
it hurt?
around that area is just where you want to be at, and that's just going to allow you to pinpoint more people a little bit more accurately. Right. Now Guardian Angel, that also has the same thing, though you don't need to lower that one nearly as much, just because if you're going towards a crowd of people, a lot of the times you're going towards the same place anyways, right? So it's not going to matter as much with your Guardian Angel sensitivity, but you can still lower it a tiny little bit, just to make it slightly
Right.
more accurate. Right. And then let's see what else we're going to talk about.
Double kill.
So. Trying to think. So we were gonna go over. Do you mind getting the replay code while I'm thinking about if there's anything else?
Sure. I was gonna try and find a replay code from a comp game that drawed that I played Mercy in, but I
Okay.
don't know where it went. They updated the game,
I'm not looking
Oh,
well.
so I think it's gone.
Triple kill.
This
Unfortunately.
does not look good for you.
So here's the one from this most recent game.
Okay, let me get that open. All right. So the main thing we'll be looking at here is, we'll talk about a little bit of stuff here on top of it, but the main thing we'll talk about is how to identify when people are, going for, we're able to go for reses and kind of when we're not able to.
Gotcha.
Now entering King's Row. Ready
Alright.
for battle.
GCQ number 12. Alright, so right off the bat, there's immediately one like near the start here. So here I was talking to you, but this one, we just slightly delayed where we just kind of waltzed over it and then we go for it. But I mean that's fine. We're waiting on our res to come back online here. Right, and then we end up dying. So maybe let's look at this death for a second. So here, Doomfist is punching at us. Super easy to get, Doomfist is right on top of us. Super easy way to just get away from him would be to go for a super jump, just get up in the air. Alternatively, we can also fly away from him and just get, go in the opposite direction, fly over to Soldier. I don't know, Ball's probably not in range here, but we can, fly in this direction maybe. Jump, like, add a space bar in to go past Soldier, get extra far away, just
My
to
immediate
add extra.
reaction was flying to Sigma that I was attached to try and, because that was like my first reaction because I saw him going above me. I was trying to use the pillar to try and
Yeah.
block his punch so that I could escape afterwards, but he ended up kind of
Yeah.
going
but-
just a bit around the pillar and ended up.
Notice as well, though,
smashing into
that
the wall.
that also sends us into their team. All right, so even
Yeah.
if Doomfist didn't kill us, there's a Reinhardt and and their entire team who's basically staring straight at us here. So that's also a pretty risky direction to be trying to go into. So typically, if you're trying to run away, a lot better of an idea is to run backwards, not forwards, right?
Yeah.
Now, yeah, let's skip forwards a little bit because here, as we're coming out, there's a dead body. I'm pretty sure happening in a moment. So skip forwards a little bit.
Shots in and stop.
Guess right now I think we're just waiting. Stuff's happening.
Damage boost engaged. Ow! You needed a doctor?
Oh, actually, maybe it's next fight. Okay, so Here we just get shattered, maybe a little bit out in the open when we could maybe be around the corner healing our team, right? That way they can't see us and shatter us super easily. And then that would just add to more survivability because we end up dying a lot here. Reinhardt booped us away. Team ends up dying. Okay, so identifying bodies. So, right now, example, Sigma. So when it comes to telling, can I res a body, you have multiple different things you have to take into account, right? There's a ton of different things. First off, right, we'll just start listing through some of them. Do I have cover usage I can use, right? So let's say, for example, let's say Sigma's body is like right here. We can duck around the corner and res it,
Yeah.
and now we have cover. Here, not really any cover from these guys, right? So first one, no, in this situation. And secondly, are there people looking at the body? Currently, no, not really, right? Nobody's looking, and it seems as though they're actually heading away from the body. And in a moment here, you're gonna actually notice that they're gonna keep walking away from the body and keep walking away from the body to where there's actually no one anywhere near the body anymore, right? So now Sigma's in a pretty resable position, right, at the moment because no one's there, right?
Gotcha.
And this one would basically, if you see this one, this pretty much would trump a lot of them, right? I mean, like if you have like one of these, a lot of the times you can just get away with it. So here, no one is here, so who's gonna stop us from getting away with the res, right? Nobody, right? On top of that, we can. Valk is another one, right? Do you have Valk or not? Now, at the moment we do, might not want to use it in this scenario, but just for other scenarios, keep in mind that Valk is going to allow you to go for much riskier reses because you have much increased mobility, which means that you can zip across the map in half a second and then also move around while you're resing in the air, right? And then on top of that, you have self-healing while you're going for it. So Valk is going to allow you to go for much riskier reses,
I
right?
think the reason why I probably didn't do that is because sure, Sigma is resible, but Soldier is back there dead. Reaper is about to get himself killed because he's in there alone
So
against like 5
then
people.
let's look at this situation, right? Reaper's about to die, but currently we're a 1, 2, 3, 4. They have 4 teammates alive, right? We get the res off. Now we're at 4. So what does it matter if we're down 2 people if we're even, right? So it's when we're talking about the numbers before, right? When we were saying 1 to 2, 2 to 3, it's not one to just down 1 to 2 people. It's not just our team being dead 1 to 2 people. It's being down below the enemy team in those numbers, right? So it's
Yeah.
being, if they're down 2 people and then we're down 2 people, that means we're even. That means we're that evens out. We're at 0. So here in this situation, that res really makes a difference because here, maybe even Reaper gets another kill. I don't know. He probably doesn't, right? He still dies, but that can allow us to push in, and we have, maybe closer spawns here. So this is a situation where we probably could go for that res and Sigma and find a lot of value out of that, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. What are some other ones? Other ones could be, do we have teammates who could protect us, right? Do we have like team support? We can get. Now this one gets, you'll be able to do this more often on purpose, like with people when you get to higher ranks or if you're playing with like people But we can get bubbles from teammates, Diva defense matrix. The big one that we can use without their consent, right? Is just shields. Like if they're holding up a shield, go for you can go for the res because you basically have an additional layer of survivability. And then I think those are the main ones, right? Or like, are they close enough to kill you, right? That's another one to think about. Or does the situation demand the res, right? Like maybe you need to try to go for that risky res, or else it's just a lost fight anyways, right? Is another another one that it could come up. So we'll go through here. This is definitely a res that we could have gone for that we don't. Right, and then we wait even longer at the moment. When we Valk, a lot of times I'm noticing that we kind of go for like one person. So when we Valk in here, notice how we're going in aggressive when it's us, when it's 3 people now versus 4 people. So I mean, like it's not terribly that's not terribly indifferent. But the big thing here is that we just don't really have anybody to get the chain beam healing going with, right? We just don't have teammates alive to do that. So Valk's just not going to get as much value there. Why do I feel like the game's like super loud even though it's at 20? Alright, it's whatever.
Let me get you patched up.
Okay, so I don't think there's anything here. So actually, do we have res now? Yeah, we do have the res now. So keep in mind is paying attention to when people are actually dying, because a couple times I think we didn't even know that they were dead in the first place. So that comes down again to watching kill feed, right? We can see people die in kill feed. When we see someone die, we're looking around and trying to eyeball these bodies and go, can I go for it, right? We can also tell that they die just from sound effects or seeing them on our screen that they're dying, right? Those are other ways we can tell as well. But kill feed will tell you anywhere on the map when they've died. Okay, so here, soldier's dead, right? So we can, we can think in our heads like, can we go for that? Currently, there's a Torbjorn sitting on top of it, but he might not, he might not stay on top of it for the next 10 seconds. So if he's going to move away, then one of those, that option might arise where we can go for it. Here, kind of sitting in the middle of point. So let's see, soldier's dead over there. For example, Torb's running over here now, so that's probably a res that we could pretty easily get off if we just fly to the ball and then, come over here and go for that res. Pretty easy to go for here.
Right.
And then we see that might be an important res to get off, because they're going to they come back and stall us for a really long time, actually, right? And now they get the Moira. Moira's out in the open on top of our Nano Reinhardt. Same with that guy, probably not super easy reses now. We fly past him because he just walks away, so that's a good res. It's just maybe we could have gotten more value out of going for a res earlier, because then we'd have even more of a player advantage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so here, skip forwards a little bit. All right, so we have another res. As it's just identifying the situation. So here, that's unlucky. Just kind of punched straight through.
Let me get you patched up.
Okay, so Sigma's over in the corner. Actually, I think we do res here. We go for that res, yeah. Okay, so let's look at this. So this one I was actually talking to you, but again, it's just paying attention. We end up dying quite a bit, and keep in mind, dying obviously isn't going to be very fun for you, and it's also not going to be very productive for your team. You're going to be putting your team at a disadvantage, as we discussed before with the kill feed watching, right? And on top of that, you're just basically not participating at all for the next 20 seconds while you're respawning and walking back. So deaths aren't really great, and we want to look to cut them out. So here... there's mainly 4 things that can cause a death, right? You can have a misuse of abilities, like as in like flying into their team. We could be out of position, as in standing on the open. We could have a lack of awareness, such as not noticing a Doomfist who's dropping on top of us. And then we could have a be overly aggressive, as in just kind of running into their team again. Here, if we're paying attention to the Doomfist, we can maybe fly away to somebody, do a super jump, something, and then that can end up keeping us alive. And then even after he slammed us, here we have multiple opportunities just to fly away, and it's just delayed, right? So in that situation, us being aware of our surroundings by listening and watching for the Doomfist, because we know he's constantly going to be doing those types of things, is going to keep us alive, right?
Right.
Okay, so here we're just waiting for the next fight. That's good.
Onwards to victory.
That was a risky one. We ultimately were like 20 HP there, but it worked out. We went for the res. That was good. They were
I noticed I wasn't
dying.
dying. I also wasn't dying because of the immortality field, so I took the opportunity to ult and kind of fly above, so I didn't get picked off at the end. And we won the fight.
Yeah. I was just saying.
I think that was a good play. I think that was a risk worth taking, personally.
Enemy contact. Barrier is unstable.
You should.
Get in here.
Okay, so here, high ground's littered all around. Top right, top left. Just super jumping up to one of them would give us a ton of increased survivability that we just never take. Or just making sure we're using cover properly. We spent a lot of time here. Good res, though. That one was good. And then we spent a lot of time just out in the open, where we just kind of plopping ourselves in the middle of nowhere, right? And then that means that we just don't have cover anywhere we're going.
Right.
Okay, so here we don't have a res. So skip forwards a little bit. And notice again how we fly away from the Torbjorn, but we fly into into 4 people, 5 people,
Into
right?
everyone else.
Into everyone else. So we want to make sure we're keeping an eye on that, and not we're not flying too far into danger, because that's one that I was talking about, where it seemed we were flying into people a lot. And then there we end up dying again, putting ourselves around the corner, not being too aggressive to begin with. Could have possibly kept us alive there. Okay, so let's get back. Here, this is where I believe we maybe no. Okay, so we go for the res here. All right, that's fine. All right, but and then look at our Valk here. So they get 2 picks initially. At this point, that's already so okay. Let's talk about this. So because this is a little bit more in between. Keep in mind that there's a lot of other stuff that goes into whether or not you're winning or losing a fight. So that's why it goes 1 to 2 and then 2 to 3. 2 is the middleman, because there's a bunch of other things that go into this. Which team has more health? Which team has closer spawns? Which team has better positioning? Which team has more ultimates? Which team is using more ultimates? Which team has more abilities? That type of deal. There's just a lot of stuff that goes into it, and currently we are down 2 people without any additional advantage. I'd say the only additional advantage we have is the close spawns, but I probably say this Valk isn't necessary right there. We're currently down 2 people, and so and then we also, everyone else on our team is low health, right? Like Ball's low, or these guys are both a little lowerish. Sigma's very low. Their team full HP. They're they have it currently using an ultimate, so it's just probably they have a pretty big advantage here, and then us Valking, as we see, doesn't do anything here, and actually we just die, and then it's just pretty much wasted, right? So in that situation, again, if we're being aware of our environment, it can save an ultimate, and then we can have it for the next fight that we're coming into. Okay, so let's see. So this one on the Baptiste, this is one where we're talking about in game. So let's rewatch this. So Baptiste dies. We hear Doomfist punch in. So Doomfist right off the bat, we see, okay, Doomfist does not have punch. He's sitting there. He's chilling. So he backs off. Doomfist is gone, and we were able to go for that res, but we still not going for it. 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 And then we go for it. Right?
I think I didn't realize that Doomfist died. I thought he just left.
Or he just left. He did just leave, right?
Oh, he did just leave?
Mm-hmm. But even in that case, right, we can go through the boxes we check off, right? So Doomfist leaves, right? Doomfist punches out. You see him there, right? So we can now check off the boxes. Do we have cover? Yes, we do have cover, right?
Yeah, we have the payload.
Right. Secondly, I guess, do they have cover? Kind of, or are people paying attention to us? Are they looking and knowing we're going for the res? They're looking in our general direction, but I'd also say they're not probably very focused on us, right, or the body at the moment. We check off more. We don't have Valk currently, but that's not super necessary here. And then, can they reach us in time? Probably not. Doomfist just punched out. He doesn't have any abilities to get back. He's 1 HP. Reinhardt is not. No one else is close enough to reach us. Therefore, this is a res we can go for, right? Because there's no one who can contest us over it. Therefore, we want to just get this res off as fast as possible. That way we can get our player back in the fight as fast as possible. Right? Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
So it's just a delayed res, right? And that again stems from kind of the awareness of paying attention to what's happening in the fight.
Guess it wasn't my turn.
Okay. Skip forwards a little bit. So here we back up, and then Lucia does this. I think we end up, we do the long wraparound. Maybe could have just come out the same doorway, because then our team's kind of ahead of us here when we're pushing, but it's not too big of a deal. So we get a pick as we're going in. Let's see what else is happening. This is where we Valk unnecessarily. So this is a one fight, right? 2 people versus 6 people, right? Very, very, very one fight. Valk just becomes unnecessary. It's just a wasted ultimate in this case, right? Where we could just have it in the next fight that we come into. And then you also notice that we're doing a lot of healing when no one really needs healing at the moment, right? Like paying attention to that. You can look at the top right corner and then kind of compare that to when we're healing versus damage boosting. Is like here we're healing, that's fine. They're all down on the ground, but then they're all dead. Every single person on your team is full HP. Yeah, we're on healing. Now we're on damage boost. Now we're back to healing. Now we're damage boost. Now we're back to healing. Damage boost, healing, damage boost. Just stay on the damage boost at the moment. Nobody really needs the healing. Therefore, you're gonna find more value out of the damage. Okay, now it's let's see. So currently we are down Wrecking Ball, who's in their team. I think here is where like it wasn't letting us fly to Soldier. Oh yeah. So it did fall off the map. That was weird. So in game it.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm kind of so confused. Yeah. That's weird.
I could not fly
Yeah.
to it. It was not there, so I just abandoned that.
Yeah. Understandable. So yeah, this one right here when we go for the Sigma, that one's honestly fine, right? I wouldn't say it was like incredibly risky for res, just because it checks off some of the boxes we talked about. So, you know, are people paying attention to the body? Actually, so it's hard to see from that perspective. From over here, you actually can't see that there's people paying attention to it, but there are a lot of people paying attention to it. So you're right, that actually was a really risky res, and they probably would have punished you at a higher rank for this because there's no cover. We don't have Valk. There are a lot of people staring straight at the body. They're damage
Yeah.
boosted. Torb's like right next to it. You know, anybody on their team, you know, Orisa and Torbjorn alone could try probably melt you super fast. So I probably say this is not a res that would work at a higher rank. I think they both kind of glanced away, like just at the very last sec, like right as you were about to swoop in for that. So that was a pretty risky res that maybe probably shouldn't have gone for. All right, and that's game. So would you like to hop into a new game, or were you wanting to go over replay that you said you had?
I can't find it. It's
Okay.
They updated the game. It was a competitive replay,
Yeah.
and I was playing Mercy on Temple. And I actually did pretty well. It was a tie game, but I think I did pretty well in it. But
Okay. So
I didn't have it, so
yeah, so you can probably look to go ahead and just get into a game. Just let me know when you do.
yeah.
While you are, I'm
Yeah.
going to go over strengths and weaknesses real quick.
I'm
Kind of.
in queue, so
Yep, sounds good. Or sorry, I meant when you get into a game. Is what I meant to
yeah,
say.
gotcha.
So starting off with ability usage. So Guardian Angel, just not too terrible. Just basically making sure we're not flying out to the open and into their team, and then also making sure that we're using super jump to get to high grounds and get away from people
Right.
is the main ones with that. And then reses, we just talked all about reses in you know the last one we were in. Make sure we're using them as often as possible because it's a pretty powerful ability to be able to turn the tides and go from a disadvantage to an advantage, or a disadvantage to a neutral, or a lost fight to one fight. Right, just is
Right.
pretty big ability to be able to do that, so it's pretty important when we go for reses. Want to make sure we're paying attention to when people are actually dying, and then also eyeballing those bodies and going, can I actually do this? Do I have things that can get away, things that will allow me to get away with it, right? And then overall, probably going to put, let's think through that. Probably going to put that at like a medium high priority for now. We'll adjust that as we go along, but that's just how much you need to work on it.
Currently in
In a game.
a game. It's still in waiting.
Still, oh,
We got a few more seconds.
Okay.
No, I'm in a game. It's just
Oh,
like
okay,
it's
yeah.
in the lobby. It's in
Yeah.
the
So,
spawn.
Falc usage probably, only thing is just not using in won or lost fights, and that's pretty much it. And damage boosting a little bit more often, but not too terrible. So that one will probably go in like a low to medium, maybe a medium.
Your support has arrived.
Mechanics don't
All
exist
right.
on Mercy. Yeah.
Game is
Game
starting.
All right. Spectating then.
Okay.
Welcome to Oasis.
I hear Tracer.
Whoa there.
I'll have to finish that when we get out of this game.
Let me get you patched up. Damage amplified. We still need
Good res.
Is now active.
healing stream engaged.
Get started.
Damage increased. Well done.
Easy. Overloading.
Let's
Oh,
get you back
make sure
out there.
positioning our team like to where we can heal as many people as possible, like
Yeah.
at all times. So kind
Everyone's
of,
kind of split up at the moment.
yeah. But we're also kind of like on the opposite side of the map from like everyone else. Like most people are on the right side, and we're on the left side of the map. So we want to make sure we're positioning near as many people as we can, not kind of putting ourselves really far away from them. If you're trying to get to the high ground there, another option would have been to do a super jump off of the Baptiste.
The
Very
battle
nice.
continues. You should be at peak performance levels. Let's do this.
Okay, so super jump, right? There that could have got us up to the high ground, which would get us away from the dive. That's actually going to be like one of the best ways to escape a dive. So currently they're on a tracer and a ball, right? Both of those guys are going to be gunning for us most of this game. So anytime they're about to come on us, just super jump, even if there's no high ground there, that can just get us away from them. And then there's a ton of high grounds on this map, so we can use either the one above point or the one to the right, right?
Where does it hurt?
Bad guys. Heads up.
Very nice.
Steve, how about a little extra here?
Where is that ball? Cheeky.
This is
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I didn't register that was a McCree.
So there you see what the mistake was, right?
Yeah.
Gonna do
Yeah.
it right next to him.
starting over from the beginning.
So again, that's one that kind of feeds into the awareness category of paying attention to what characters or where are they at, who are they.
Activating the barrier.
Damage amplified.
My turn. Maximum power.
Right beside you.
Let them out.
Healing stream engaged.
Regen up. Fracturing. Like the impression of a dying star. Step right.
Heroes never die. Damage
Okay,
increased.
good Valk.
That melody.
Oh. Instead of just slowly floating in the ground, maybe fly and guardian angel someone.
For some reason, it didn't show the left shift to fly thing until like a second later.
Let's get you back out there.
Okay.
Let me show you how it's done. What is this power?
Where does it hurt? Огонь по готовности.
Okay. Ah.
Regen up.
Healing stream engaged.
Okay, couple different things. First off, spam jumping a lot here. Secondly, position to the best place possible, the very in between fights, right? So make sure we're taking that. Oh, unfortunate. So make sure that in between fights we're taking the high ground. We're not just sitting on the low ground, right? So we're trying to set up in the best place possible, so we have that positioning for when the fight begins, and we're not forced to try to take it mid-fight.
Gotcha.
Which you have like a good 20 seconds between fights to do. Secondly, we're out in the open, a large portion of that fight. And then also keep in mind, you can. I think we're trying to, but keep in mind we can super jump off of the dead bodies as well, which you can get us up to the high ground and get us away from people.
I was trying to do that, but I was too close to it, so.
Yeah, I think what it was that we were jumping while you were trying to do it, and then that messed it up. So I think we might have to talk about just. We'll go over after this, just like making sure you're getting. I'll basically show you the tech again, right? Just get you used to it. I think if you're trying to jump while you're doing it, it doesn't work out too well. Because it also seems like we're struggling with it slightly, so we'll go a little bit, just show you how we can do that effectively. Alright, so in that situation, first off, while we were going for the res, there's like a McCree who was like critical right next to us. Keep in mind that sometimes you might want to prioritize keeping him alive, because then if we don't, then that's just, we've just traded a death for a life, and then if we do keep him alive, then that means that we'll just be one up for net gain, right? So that's one thing. Secondly, just identifying the fact that like there were some people next to us, which meant that they were able to just kill us pretty easily there when we went for it.
Damage increased. Healing stream engaged.
Activating the barrier.
You needed a doctor? You should be at peak performance levels. Let me get you patched up.
Ah.
Nice chooks.
Schade.
Though we walked out into the open and then died. Okay, so there.
I was trying to get behind the tree, but I couldn't get there in
Yeah,
time.
so the trees, not the fantastic cover just because it has tiny little poles. So, you were better off just not walking out into the open in the first place. So we were on the left side and then we just left the cover that was on the left into just the open. So we
I
want to
think
make.
I don't know how to press S.
Yeah,
I
so.
think I don't know how to back.
Yeah. Mm,
Alright.
yep, good res.
This is not the end. Where does it hurt? Ich bin da.
And then that was a situation, right, where just having better positioning would just result in us staying alive longer.
Tactical necessity.
Make sure we're not on healing when somebody's purple. That's just basically overhealing
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
So in that situation, we just swap the damage booster, look for someone else to heal until the purple comes off of them. If it's if it's like the last second of it, then you can swap to healing, right? That's fine, but not when they're just recently purpled.
That's death.
Do you know how early in that fight you got your ultimate? Or did you get it right before you died?
I've had the ult for a while, but I
Okay.
didn't want to use it while on the grab because I'd probably just.
Yeah, I'm saying,
Die.
did you have it before the grab or no?
I had
I
it
think
before the grab.
yeah. So maybe in that situation we could have popped it earlier in the fights, right? That way we're not getting grabbed and losing it. So when it comes to ult usage, a lot of the times you want to first off make sure you're not holding on to your ultimate because then it's just same thing with reses, right? You just don't get as much value out of it. But I think so far we've done a decent job of that. Secondly, you want to make sure that you're using your ults at the very beginning of fights, as when we hold on to them for mid or late fights, something like that could
Right.
happen where you just get grabbed and then now you can't use your ult, right? So in that situation, if we had Valked earlier, then we wouldn't be grabbed, and we would actually have the value out of the ultimate. So ults that are used first inherently get more value than ults that are used second. Just want to make sure you're not using too early to where the fight hasn't even begun yet. All right, now let's talk through some other stuff. First, let's just go finish the strengths and weaknesses, and then we'll move on to some more. So
Okay.
I said ability usage coming in at like a medium high, right? Valk usage, probably say that'll be probably more like a medium with how we're using that. Now, Mercy does not have mechanics, but she does have beam usage of like how she's using her beam. And with
Right.
that, we have things such as make sure we're not overhealing. And then in our Valk, of how we're using our beam. And then one more I'm actually going to introduce here. To talk about is make sure that we're sticking on, this one isn't super big, but is a tiny, is a thing, is that sometimes we're sticking on our tanks a little bit more than we should be. So Mercy really excels with pocketing DPS, as first off, she doesn't have very high healing output, so she's just better at healing single beam targets, right? And she also has the damage
Right.
boost, which damage boost gets the most value for characters that are doing the most damage, right? So overall, Mercy just prefers to be pocketing DPS, and a lot of times will default back to tanks. So how pocket targets work, right? You probably heard the term pockets, right? Mercy pockets people, but the term you probably would like to get used, or is a better term for just understanding how it works, is they're your default targets. So that means that whenever we're not healing somebody needs it, whenever we're not going for a res, whenever we're not on somebody else who's doing something better, we're defaulting back to the best targets, right? So the best pocket target. So that would most of the time be the DPS, and then even within the DPS, some DPS are better pocket targets than other pocket targets. Like, for example, Pharah can be like one of the best ones out there, but maybe pocketing a tracer might not be nearly as good as pocketing a Pharah, right? So within DPS, you kind of have this hierarchy, so you kind of want to figure out what are the best things to pocket and
Ash
when.
is one of the best ones, right? Because when you're damage boosting in Ash, it's a one-hit headshot.
Not
for
anymore.
200
They
health.
actually nerfed
Oh, did
that.
they did finally? I'm so glad they changed that.
Yeah. So she's still decent with Ash. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
she's as good anymore because they made
Yeah.
Ash more proficient on her own, but not as good with Mercy. So still decent pocket target, not the as good as she was though. All right.
Gotcha.
So yeah, just making sure there's just a couple times where we'll just be on tanks when there's no reason to, and we could probably just be on the DPS instead. And then that goes into beam usage. Beam usage overall, though, probably like a low to medium priority, right, for you to work on. Positioning, big ones are going to be making sure that we're not on the open, because we're on the open and that's getting us killed. And then the other one is making sure we're taking high grounds, and then also making sure that we are not separating ourselves from our teams. So for example,
Right.
sometimes we'll do this where we'll be all the way over here to where we can only heal one person, whereas why would we do this when we could just be over here and can heal anybody, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of times where we will just position ourselves really far away from people, whereas we probably want to be in the middle of as many people as possible, right? Whereas if someone's all over there, just be with the big clump of people, that way we're able to heal people. Now, let's say that was like a really good pocket target and they're going off on their own. If we have another support here, then we might want to go off with them, like if they're going on an off angle or a flank and getting behind the enemy team. That is definitely a valid option, but you don't want to do if it's like, just another support or a tank or a bad pocket target, right? Then just let them be over there and be with the main bulk of everybody else, right? Overall, positioning's probably like a medium priority for you to work on, and then finally comes in at awareness. Awareness is probably the biggest one, as there's just a lot of different things that feeds into your ultimate usage and your ability usage, with paying attention to the kill feed and paying attention to how you're, paying attention to that'll let you know when people are dying, and then also let you know like can I go for the res, right? So pay attention to awareness and the things that are happening around you. Watch kill feed. Just as a quick reminder, it's 1 to 2, 2 to 3. Is advantage 1 to 2 advantage, 2 to 3 won or lost fight. Then besides that, there's other things such as just noticing the enemy team and paying attention to them. Sometimes you're just not understanding, what team comps are they on. So for example, pay attention to team compositions, because team comp dictates play style. When they're on flankers or dive characters, we're playing differently than if they were like on a snipers. Pay attention to just where are they at, make sure we're not staring at our teammates, and we're yeah, and then that was big ones there. Let's see, was there anything else? Just a lot of odds and ends stuff that goes into this category.
Gotcha.
And I think those are the main ones that we have been looking at. And then paying attention our teammates' health bars to tell whether, like, when we're overhealing and whatnot, and when we should be on which beam and on which targets and who we need to be with. A couple times where like people will be like critical and we won't notice it or whatnot, right? So paying attention to where our team is as well. Make sure we're not, just walking forwards, doing slow pans around, but instead we're looking left or looking right. We're doing 360 or just paying attention to our surroundings. We're also listening to, and then overall that one probably comes in. I don't think it's. We'll put it at a medium high. Honestly, I don't think it's enough to put it at like a super high, but it's definitely up there at the top. Just needs a lot of work. So medium high priority, right? And then moving on to other things, what we're going to talk about in here. So we talked about the beam targets. I feel like there's something else I want to talk about, but I'm just
Super jump?
Yeah, super jump. We're not going to talk about just the different jumps. Sometimes I'm noticing just as well as super jump, we're also just we're just messing up a couple of our other jumps, or not jumps, other flies as well. So we'll real quick just go through all of them and how they work and what situations you want to use them in. So basically you have like 4 different things mainly with it. You have regular fly, you just press the button and fly straight to the person. You have
Straightforward.
Yep, straightforward, right? You have fly and then jump, which will send you past the person. This one, I think, is where we get slightly confused sometimes, where sometimes we won't do this when we should be. Like, for this in the example I gave before, where sometimes we want to be using this so we can get extra far away, so we can maybe like get behind the cover, whereas we'll just kind of fly to them and just be out in the open now.
It's also the fact that I'm spam jumping that's probably making me fly past the target.
In situations where you don't want to, right?
Yeah.
That's definitely one of them.
It's just a fidget that I need to try to get rid of.
Exactly, right? It's just going to make you easier to shoot at, going to make it harder to use your flies. Yeah, you can also cancel your fly by, it depends on what you actually have your setting on, but it's either by letting it go or by double clicking and as mine's actually on the
I don't have it on hold. I have it just on press.
Yeah, so you're gonna.
I tried hold and I screwed it up so many times, and I tried it on hold.
Yeah, so I think on my other accounts I actually have it on hold, but on this one I have it on just a tap, so I have to double click it to cancel, which you can use to, for example, let's say you're trying to just get to here real quick, we can just do that, right? Just to cancel it and get to more precise.
Guardian Angel prefers beam target. Should that be on?
So this one's a hotly debated topic because there's people on both sides of the equation. I used to be actually on one side, and now I'm on the other, so I actually think you probably should have it on, specifically because it's going to allow you to be The big one is like you can fly to people. Actually, I don't think I have this on. Yeah, I don't have it on this account. But this is going to allow you to, for example, let's say you're like falling off the map. This means you can fly to somebody even while not seeing them, right? Or you're around the corner, you can fly to the person without seeing them, right? Falling off a high ground, fly to someone without seeing them just because you have your beam on them. So there's a lot of
Gotcha.
situations where that'll happen where that's just gonna allow you to fly whereas it wouldn't let you fly before.
This does not look
Yeah,
good
so
for you.
then moving on, finally, you have your super jump. Super jump, I think a lot of times we're messing it up because we're trying to jump while we're doing it.
It's crouch S, and at the very end it's crouch and then fly, and at the very end you jump. And I also press S to try and stop the forward momentum, so that kind of
Yeah,
I think that's the way to do it.
so let me read. So basically, first off, you press your control and shift at the exact same time. So you press crouch and the fly at the exact same time rather than just one or the other. I mean, you can. I mean, like, can you even? No, that
Yeah.
doesn't. Yeah, so
I've done it. I've done it.
So it's a really simple way to do it because then you don't really have to think about it. You can just take your pinky and just lay it across both of them at the exact same time, and you'll notice how you kind of duck low to the ground. Now, when you're pressing jump, is when you are at the very you'll see how you go down and you kind of come up with this lip. And when you're at the very peak of that lip is where you press spacebar, and there's actually no forward momentum unless you press it too early. The only times you get forward momentum is when you press it too early, and then you end up going kind of diagonally forwards, or if we just it basically acts as if you're just doing a fly jump, right?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure if you're trying to go straight up that you're waiting a little bit longer so you can go kind of up in the air, right, to the very end of that. Whereas if you're trying to go more forwards, then you can look to do it a little bit earlier, right? A lot of times I think we're pressing it way too early, and we want to wait till we're up a little bit more. And then S is not needed in that equation.
Okay.
Most of the time, right? I probably, there's a couple times where we might want to, like, back up to this high ground, right? But it's not needed in every time that you do it. Okay. And then I think that is pretty much it. So you can look to go ahead and get into another game there.
All right. Another thing is that I don't like Oasis as a map, which is the map that we just played. I hate that map, so that's probably also why I wasn't doing that well on it, is because I dislike control maps.
Huh.
Lijiang I kind of like.
Which is funny.
Nepal I like, but
I don't even know if I dislike any maps. Or I guess I'll count Paris and Horizon on there.
Paris and Horizon. I also hate Blizzard World. All right, I'm in a game. Defense on Havana. But it's hit or miss. Sometimes I'm having a bad day and I'm not doing well on it at all, so I'm just kind of getting frustrated. Defense on Havana. Yeah, this is good. This is good. Got Bastion with no shield tank. No, okay, thank you.
We're all soldiers now.
Alright, so like right now we'd kind of just be identifying, what team compositions. First thing we're paying attention to every single game, so we're thinking on our team, what are our pocket targets?
Junkrat and Soldier, I believe, are both pretty good pocket targets, right?
Soldier's much better than Junkrat. Junkrat's pretty inconsistent with it,
if they have a shield tank, Junkrat is pretty good to.
Even in that, he can be. Yeah.
Not for pocketing, but like if they have a shield tank, pocket him for damage every now and then to kind of break through them.
You can.
We also do have a Roadhog as well. Junkrat and Roadhog. We have a lot of DPS.
Yeah. So Roadhog, when you want to be damage boosting Roadhog, he's unique, and this is a good point. Is you damage boost him in certain instances, right? You damage boost him when he lands a hook, and you damage boost him when he's ulting, and those are where you're damage boosting him. You're not just going to stay on him. Instead, right now you probably want to be on your Soldier, right? He's gonna be your
Where the heck is Soldier?
main pocket target. To your top
Oh,
left.
he's up there.
Right.
No.
Yeah, a little bit too far on the open. Yeah, there just wasn't cover to use. Balls in the middle of their team, so not really much we can do there.
I'm taking care of you. I'm with you.
Turret within my sight.
We make a great team. I'm being attacked. You should be at peak performance levels. Let me get you patched up.
I'm not.
Oh,
This is.
I've got you.
Yeah, soldiers. Oh, they have a bastion. That's great.
That's better.
Oh, we just went from 2 die. Is Roadhog a dive tank?
No, he's not.
He's not. I didn't think so. A bit. Okay.
Damage boost engaged.
Nice res. When the soldier had died earlier, that was also a situation where he probably could have gone a res off after the Reinhardt charged away.
But...
Yeah. So the Reinhardt, like, there were people on him, but then, like, keep in mind that people tend to move away from bodies after a little bit. So keep in mind that is that you want not just eyeball the body for the first second, but you want to keep an eye on it, right? So just pay attention to the body for the next 10 seconds. That way, if they end up moving away from it, which they did, then that's a situation where we maybe could have gone for it. So here, you know, if we're trying to get the soldier, we can go for a super jump off of one of our teammates to just to, you know, get up to him a little bit easier if he's not peeking.
I'm not staying up there. Okay, neither soldier. That's good. I'm glad. I'm glad we settled that.
Damage boost engaged.
Right, so this is a situation here where everyone's just full HP, so we're looking to...
Oh.
Oh.
Oh god.
Make sure we're using some cover, right? Not just a lot of times I'm noticing that we're flying in and then doing when there's like when we're kind of near cover and then not using the cover. So just make sure we're using cover properly.
Tactical visor active.
Heroes never die.
The special attack.
I'm taking care of you.
Okay. Ult popped a little bit late in that fight. I probably
a little bit.
Probably would say it would have been better if we had used it earlier because the fight was kind of full on raging. But then we used it kind of when we were at the advantage phase where we were kind of like looking up.
Yeah.
And we had a bunch of ults already going. So in that instance, it probably is where we're at least hesitant with it, where we're going maybe I don't need this, right?
Mercy gets her ult really quickly. Sometimes when I'm debating between using it or not using it like that, I usually just use it because I get it really quickly.
Yeah, which is true, but you know it's also not instantaneously. So for example, like you won't have it. Oh. Paying attention, right?
No, I couldn't.
So
I couldn't get to that.
So ult usage, right? You don't get it instantaneously, right? So like if we end up wasting it, then they could just end up coming in the next fight and then we lose the next fight because you don't have it for the beginning of the next fight, right? So it's better to just be, you know, have wiser decision making when it comes to that, right? To understand when we can.
Not happening.
I'm taking care of you.
Woo.
And standing on the open right now, make sure you know over near cover.
Healing stream engaged.
60 seconds remaining.
Don't let up on that. Heldenstern. Let me get you patched up.
Nice.
Heroes never die. Let's get you back in the
In that instance, this was a 6v3. Probably Valk not needed there.
I thought there was like 6v4.
No, it's just Bastion tanks, right? So just paying
I saw that as a bit spooky.
Yeah. So I mean, even in that instance, you know, it was.
Because I have been screwed before where it was a 3v6 and we still lost because it's Bastion and 2 shield tanks.
So think of it this way. So yes, it happens, right? But it's such a low probability, right? It's like, you know, anything's possible. There could be a 1% chance it happens, 5% chance, but is it worth wasting your ultimate for a 5% chance that they win it when you have that 95% chance that you win it, right?
That's fair.
So, you know, in that instance, you go with the.
Oh my!
That's
I just got freaking sniped by a. We won that, but I just got sniped.
Did he just
he jumped?
Like, jumped? Yeah. That's pretty sick.
He rocket jumped and he just sniped me. all right. That was... Oh dear.
But overall, pretty well played. I think we're starting to implement some of the things we talked about. Starting to pay attention a little bit more to the reses, besides the one soldier who got unfortunated.
I was talking, so I wasn't quite aware of that.
Yeah, sometimes that happens.
Okay. Go ahead and leave this.
All right, so I do not have more to demonstrate for the moment, so you probably just hop into another game.
All right.
That was a pretty solid one.
All right. Okay, ready. There. Okay. Now I'm hyper focused on everything I do. Usually in most games, I'm kind of just like, I feel like when I'm not as focused, I do better, just because I'm kind of acting by instinct rather than trying to focus on doing things. I'm in a game. No.
Okay, well,
Not that game.
oh.
It's quick play. I can afford to leave. I'm not doing
Alright,
Paris. I'm sorry.
Just make sure you don't. If you queue up right away, you might end up getting in the same one.
Nah, I waited a
Alright,
second.
so why don't we talk on that real quick then? So, basically how the improvement process works, like, how do you look to work on these things that we talked about? Because, for example, awareness, some of that seems a little bit vague, especially when we're not talking about
Yeah.
specific things such as the kill feed, right? A little bit of awareness starts to get a little bit vague. So how does one look to get better at awareness, right? Well, you get better at awareness the same way that you get better at anything that you're trying to get better at, and that is to focus on it while you're playing, contrary to what we were just saying, right?
Yeah.
Basically, if you're autopiloting, you're just playing to play, then you're not really improving at all. And if you, contrary to popular belief as well, if you're playing to win, you're also not going to be improving at all. You're just going to be stagnating. So, whereas if you're focusing on improvement, you are going to be winning more games in the long run, right? In the long term. I'm expecting you, by
Right.
the way.
Yep.
Now, how your brain would look like while you're playing is you'd be going awareness, right? And when you are doing that and you're paying very close attention to the things that are around you, you're going to start to notice that your awareness is going to be a little bit better, right? Because you're paying attention and you're looking around yourself. And therefore, if that keeps up for a long enough period of time, it starts to form as a habit, right? And when it forms as a habit, now you no longer need to put
for the
focus
time
into
being,
it.
you kind of need to. I kind of need to. I need to hyperfixate on making sure that these things are always going on. I'm always focused on things like awareness and environment and such. That way it becomes habit later, so I don't need to focus as much on as much brain power on that.
Exactly, and then you can move on to other things, right? One thing I just say is just make sure that you're not focusing on every single thing at once. We talked about a bunch of stuff. One category of things or 1 to 3 smaller things within a category is going to be what you want to be on. Right. Here, probably want to be on the Bastion if whenever possible. Genji's
whenever
gonna be
he
good
gets
when
around
he's
here.
yeah. Genji when he's bleeding, Hog when he's hooking, and and when he's ulting as well.
Woo!
Yeah, very nice. Possibly could have used the wall to the left as well, right? Just get out of his line of sight.
Right.
Let's get you back out there.
Give me that sweet ult charge, and he's dead.
You should be at peak performance level. You needed a doctor?
Okay, so here we have a lot of good... Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah. So here we just have a lot of good pocket targets, especially situational ones, where we're gonna just be we're just gonna be all over the place here. So we just want to pay attention to those situational things, like Genji and Roadhog both pretty much have their ults right now, and Bastion almost has his ult right now. So all three of those are really good pocket ultimates. So really nice, good corner usage there, right? So we just want to pay attention to when they're doing what. That way we can actually pocket the right thing at the right time.
I'm taking care of you. The dragon becomes me. You should be at peak performance level. Group up here.
Alright guys, let's not get too ambitious. Come on.
Damage amplified.
Oh, this is my jam. Oh, let's break it.
What?
Oh. Did we peek that for the beat? I think it was like a quarter of a second too late.
Did the beat not hit me?
No, the beat didn't hit you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I forget that the beat isn't like a full circle because it has line of sight as well.
Yeah, but
about that.
Keep in mind, I think what we were. Are you aware of the fact that you can walk? It has kind of a lingering effect, so you can walk into it even after he's like cast it, if that makes sense.
Huh.
So there it looked.
Well.
Yeah. So you can do that. We were just like half a second too late to get to that lingering effect.
Right. That was just me not really knowing how beat works because I don't play Lucio. I mean, I do play Lucio sometimes. No.
Yeah.
Bad. Yeah.
So there
okay,
we heard we heard the fact that the McCree shot him. We might.
I didn't know everyone was there though. I thought there was maybe like one person there that was about to leave, but no, everyone.
Probably, yeah. In that situation, probably the best decision would be to like kind of scout it out before we're just flying in blindly, right? Rather than just going in without any information. We probably want to gather some information first.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's...
Okay. Now I'm noticing that we're holding onto our ultimates a lot. It's just keep in mind that we're not, make sure we're not
trying to wait for everyone to group up so that I can use it and we can push in.
But there's even been situations where a team has been grouped up that we have yet to use it. Like in this situation right now, when at the moment our team's all grouped up, right? Where we probably should be blocking it.
Yeah. We can do it now.
But it's just roughly like 3 fights there. Want to make it more like 1-2 fights.
Couldn't quite escape it. That's fine. Well, I'm gone. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so when it comes to ultimate usage, you use it in any fight that has not been won or lost yet, right? And preferably early in the fight, right? Whereas sometimes, and that gets more advanced as you get higher up in ranks, but for for the moment, that's just the basic thing to go off of.
All right. 1, 2, 2, 3. So if it's 1, 2, it's still safe to attempt to Valk, especially if I have res, because if I'm Valking and I have res, then it's easier to avoid dying.
I'm taking care of you, Genji.
Yeah.
Correct.
One of the things I focus on with trying to go for reses is that I try to go when no one is expecting them.
Yep, that's a good one. That's basically
like
kind of
like if the team is like, oh, they aren't gonna res that, they wouldn't dare, and then I go and res that, and I'm like, wait, what? That's what I tried to go for, but sometimes it kind of blows up in my face. We have a lever. Okay, that's fine.
1. Round 2. Capture the objective.
Ich bin da.
Alright, so here McCree probably be the best just standard target to be on.
I'm gonna let Ryan get his fire strike if he's gonna go for it, which I guess not.
Damage amplified.
Okay.
Ich kümmere mich.
The objective is now.
Get them off me. Damage increase.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm noticing that we'll sit a little far back, so when people, for example, like that Reinhardt pushing in really aggressively, sometimes we'll just sit too far away, whereas we probably should be just pushing forward so we can heal him, right?
Right.
You should be at peak performance level.
Oh, went a little far there.
Healing stream engaged. Damage boost engaged.
Oh. That's gonna be, yeah. That was. I knew as soon as he used that was gonna be like three kills.
So in that situation, first off, Genji we maybe could have gone for a res on when he's in the back right, if we were paying attention to it. Secondly, Valk there was a possibility. Just making sure we're not holding onto it for too long, right? So like in this fight, we probably want to be using it like soon as the fight's beginning.
Never die. I'm taking care of you. Damage amplified. Cover me.
Nanoboost administered.
Healing stream engaged.
Okay. So there, we were just really far back when the fight was happening. We had like 4 people on point. Yeah, we were kind of still at choke point, right? So sticking with the main bulk of our team, making sure we're not sitting too far away. damage reducing the Genji when he's going for his blade.
Let's get you back out there. Well done.
Nice res.
This is not the end.
Very nice.
Heroes never die.
I remember this.
Name. You needed a doctor? The phase. Damage amplified. Don't stop now. Let's get you back out there. Damage increased.
Oh, yeah.
It was then or never.
Yeah, probably say never, right? In that situation, it's just that's a pretty even fight where we're only down like one person, right? That's very winnable fight, but then as soon as we go for that res, that is super risky. That just pulls the fight in the opposite direction, right? Where we're now, instead of just being down one person, now we're down two people, and we lose all our carrying potential, right? And then therefore we lose the fight, right? So in that situation, that play is partially due, or that loss, right, is partially due to that play that we just made, right? Just because we get enemy getting punished for it. So in that situation, way too risky of a res. That's the only situation where you'd go for that risky of a res is if you had like it was like a 2v6, right? That's where you maybe.
I
go
thought
for that
that's what
res.
it was because I only saw the Rhine there and like maybe one person behind.
No, I'm pretty sure it's like a 4v6. Unless you can check in the replay if you'd like to, but fairly certain that you had a lot more teammates than just the one Reinhardt. So, I mean, maybe you can get that up if you'd like to just check it real quick in between games. But,
I want to check that 1 second.
yeah. So moving on top of that, I guess I'll show you when we just go back and look at the replay real quick. But I had one other thing on your ultimate to talk about.
All right. That was near the end of the game. Why is it? Okay, so that's. What? I'm not sure exactly how viewing the replays work because I've seen the first map. I'm not seeing the second map though.
Oh, what do you mean the first map?
The first map, the building.
Yeah, are you talking about in the? Oh, okay. Are you in the replay currently? You can just share with me if you want.
Yeah. 1 second.
Yeah.
Share. Copy. Bit.
All right. So real quick before we stop in at the end, just talking about your ult real quick. So we're not. It's 12
there
anymore.
You go.
So we're number 5. Okay. So here, when we use our Valk, we're actually a little bit too early with it. So this is where I'm saying like we want to make sure we're actually using it, not doing it too late. But there's also a too early on the spectrum as well. So when it comes to using your ultimate, you want to be using it as the fight is beginning or just right after it has begun, right? Sometimes even right at the very beginning is too early. So here, we pop our ultimate before the fight has begun. So how you can tell whether or not it's begun is, the big one is the distance between people. Some other side ones are maybe like, when ultimates are being flown around or picks are happening. But sometimes even those can be happening in between fights, right? But the big one is like how close are the teams to each other. Here we're gonna pop our Valk in like a second here, like now-ish. Way too early, just because no one our team but look how far away the teams are from each other. They're not really in a position to do anything right now. We're in what you call the poke phase. It's just where both teams are just kind of sitting at a distance and we're just going pew pew pew, right? We're trying to get up to them, and when we're up to them, that's when we want to be popping Valk. So at the moment, like I'll kind of pinpoint for you and like let you know right around the area where the fight's begun. Because now we've just, the fight hasn't started yet. Probably say the fight's begun now, okay? Roughly around the time. So Tracer and Diva are inside of your team. Junkrat's being nanoed. The teams are getting a little bit more aggressive. They're pushing towards each other. Now this is basically at the very start of the fight here, right? But by this point, we've already used half of our Valk, right? And then half of his gun. And then, quite honestly, we might even, Genji gets aggressive. Might even say that it's, actually, they back out, so I might not even say that the fight's begun there. So it's hard to say, sometimes, but it's definitely it was way too early to start off. Okay, the other thing here is that we just kind of sit near choke. So notice where our whole team is, right? Our whole team is right side currently. Genji's right side, Reinhardt's right side, Roadhog's main, right? We have a McCree all the way in their spawn, right? So we have 2 people on the right currently. Right, these guys over here. Probably, and then Anna's running that way as well. Probably want to be over with them because that's where the main bulk of people are, right? If we're over here, that means we're with Anna, Genji, and Reinhardt. Whereas if we're all the way over here, we're just with one Roadhog, right? So you just want to make sure we're keeping up with him. On top of that, we probably want to be pocketing Genji through his blade. So are you aware of what the kind of damage numbers are, or what is damage boost do to a Genji when he does not have a nano?
I'm not sure how much damage his base.
Yeah, you don't have to give me the numbers.
I think it does 100 damage per swing, right?
You don't have to give me the numbers, but like how many slashes and/or dashes does it take to kill someone? So, for example,
200 health when he's not nanoed. I know that much.
So I'll give you an example of what I'm trying to get at. So when Genji is without any damage boost at all, it takes him 2 slashes. Dash does not even have an impact, right? It's on a full 200 health target, 2 slashes is needed. What is it with a Mercy damage boost?
Mercy damage boost is 30% damage boost, right?
Mm-hmm. So if this takes too long, I'll just pull out the numbers here. But it's or what it actually is. So when Mercy applies his damage boost to Genji when he's ulting, it now does not require 2 slashes. Instead, it takes 1 dash and a slash, which greatly increases the value of the ultimate. Right, does a whole lot more. Keeps him alive as well. Right, it speeds it up much faster, which means he's able to get kills much faster, and faster kills means secured kills. Now, when you were, I assume you're aware of that. That does it with the nano boost as well, right? The nano boost allows for the slash dash. Are you aware of what it does? Of what happens when you nano boost him and damage boost him?
I would assume it's 1 slash.
Exactly, 1 single slash, which
I
is
didn't know that.
Pretty nuts.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. So we just, in any case, if Genji's going for a blade, we want to be on top of him, right? We want to be there with him, damage boosting him along with it. And a lot of times it might not even be too risky for us anyways, because when they're blading, who is their entire team looking at?
Him.
Probably him, right? So that gives us additional survivability because no one's looking at us. Now let's skip forwards to the end where during the last fight when we went in for that risky res. So right on here. So at the moment in which we top the res, we currently have Genji, Reinhardt on a 4. So it's a 4-5v5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Wait, where's Genji?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Let me see where Genji is. Oh, he's right there.
Hmm?
And McCree's up top. Okay, yeah, there were a bunch of people there. For some reason, I thought I saw a lot of like red killing blue in the kill feed.
Mm-hmm. So it's just, again, that awareness that you can see feeds into, awareness. Essentially, think of it this way, right? You are incapable of making good decisions unless you have the base of good awareness, right? If you have no clue what the heck is going on, like in this situation, right, where we just didn't know what was happening, then we fundamentally cannot make a good decision, right? Whereas if we are aware when we are aware of our surroundings, that doesn't guarantee that you make good decisions, because there are some times where where I know people who I've seen people, right, with my coaching who will notice what's happening and still make the wrong decision. Right, but it does make leaps and bounds towards the right direction when you actually understand here that it's a 5v5 rather than a 2v5, right? 2v5 means that going for the res is good, and then 5v5 means going for the res is bad. Good?
It all leads back to, I think the main thing I need to work on is awareness, knowing where people are, knowing people's locations, knowing people's health, knowing what ultimates are ready, what ultimates are about to be used, are being used.
Kill feed.
If the fight's winnable.
Dead bodies, right?
Where the dead bodies are, yep.
Yep.
Just a lot of things on the map.
Yep.
I'm very tunnel visioned a lot of the time, it seems.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do when my entire team is very split. I never know which way to go, so I kind of just go for whoever's closest.
Yeah. So it really depends on the situation. So when they're all split, we want to usually gravitate towards the most people as possible, right? So for example, let's go for that situation where we're pretty split. You know, I told you over here, right, where we had your teammates going right side, right? It was roughly around here, right? Teammates going right side, pretty decently split, right, in this situation. Right. You have your McCree all the way across the map and spawn, right, all the way over there. You have Genji, Reinhardt, everyone's split up here, right? But our Ana's about to go right side as well, right? So in this situation, pretty much everyone's split up from each other, but we can ourselves make this less split. So if we go to the Roadhog, now it's 2 people grouped up, 2 people grouped up, and Ana's on her own, right? If we go to these guys, now it's 3 people grouped up, 1 person on their own, 1 person on their own. So we've now created, by us coming over here, we've created a bigger group. Anna's about to Anna's walking in this direction as well, right? Anna's coming over here too. So now if we're coming this direction, now it's 4 people grouped up, right? So we are, we probably want to gravitate to the biggest clump of people and let, because we're not going to be able to get over to McCree, right? And we're not going to be able to get really, Roadhogs, we can get to Roadhog, but we probably don't want to be with Roadhog at the moment. Now, let's say that this Roadhog was a Pharah, right? Now that's a little bit different. Now we have a really good pocket target who we can go on this off angle with, and we can stay with them just because they're an insane pocket target. Roadhog's not as good of a pocket target, and he also has self-healing. Pharah doesn't, and 600 health. So he is more self-sustained than Pharah does. Therefore, we can probably go for these guys rather than just Roadhog. So that's just kind of a situation where people were split.
Right.
That's kind of the thought process in which we're going for. Now we probably go ahead and get into another game here.
All right. Already. Be a good map, please.
Oh, I accidentally clicked join game. Hopefully it doesn't. I'm just gonna leave real quick and then click spectate.
Volskaya, defense. Alright. I can do that. I used to hate Volskaya, but I've grown a liking to it.
Mm-hmm. I think as you understand the maps in the games to a fuller extent, you kind of learn what works and what doesn't work, and then therefore you kind of get a better I guess you start to appreciate the map's uniquenesses. Now, I'd also say that I'll probably also say that when you play less characters, that also means that you're probably going to like certain maps less, because certain maps are better for other characters than they are for, different things. I'm pretty flexible guy, so I can play whatever, wherever. But if, somebody doesn't play whatever, wherever, then that's where I can also see people not liking certain maps.
Right. Like, I know a lot of people that absolutely hate Temple of Anubis. Me, I love Temple of Anubis.
I think
it is one of the best Junkrat maps.
Yep, same.
Okay.
Alright, so here run an
Echo. Fire Strike.
Echo would probably be the best one to stick with, and then Reaper would be pretty decent, but only if he is doing one of two things: inside the enemy team or ulting, right? And those are the 2 main ones, right? Tanks and on only if needed.
I can go for that res, easy.
Yep.
This is not the end. I'm taking care of you.
I think I should probably try consistently talking. That way I'm not too in my own head, if that's the right term.
Yeah.
Alright. Ryan's hacked. Can't get the Reaper.
You should be at peak performance level.
Zarya's on me. Okay. Okay.
Where does it hide?
Echo's low.
I probably could be popping a Valk right about now, right?
Yeah,
You know,
I was about to, but I hesitated.
Nope, just, you know, the fight's going on. Not won or lost yet, so just a good rough time to be using it.
Meteor strike.
Healing stream engaged. Your support has arrived.
Very nice.
The battle
Ah!
continues.
I almost got to Ryan, but
Let me get you patched up.
ah.
Okay, when you're on a Reaper, very rarely are you going to want to heal him when he's on top of people. You damage boost him because he can self-heal, and that's going to up his self-healing, right? Unless he's like really low, then you can, if he's really low or he's far away
And
from
then he's gonna go
people,
ahead and decide to solo. Oh. Okay.
yeah, if he's in the middle of shooting at people, right, you damage. If he's like 1 HP, you can heal, or if he's far away from people, right, you can heal.
Right.
But otherwise, he just gets in his increased self-healing, because when he's doing more damage, then he's healing himself more.
Right. This is a pretty good Reaper, so I'm gonna definitely keep an eye on him. Ryan's charging in on his own. That's... If he dies... That... Okay, now... Alright. What are you... Is that a good play? Am I...
No. This no,
Okay.
probably not.
Okay, I'm just making sure I'm not crazy. I don't want to be like, oh, that was a stupid play. I'm not going to go in and support them. And you're going to be like, oh, actually, that was one of the best plays I've seen in the entire Overwatch career. And then I'm like, oh, should I have gone in and helped? And, you know.
Right. Well, there are, you know, not that situations, but there are situations where you might want to go in to help in that. But, you know, that's getting complicated topics that we're not currently on.
Okay, this is, That's
we're
lost.
learning. Yeah. So Lost probably not gonna get out. Probably is best that you let them kill you, right?
Just yeah.
Just group up, get some good positioning, wait for the next fight.
Okay.
30 seconds remaining.
Valkyrie online.
New defense point. Objective B.
Okay. So they have a Doomfist Sombra, paying attention to those guys, super jumping away from those, you know, and making sure we're just being aware of them and watching our flanks and surroundings.
It will be easier to avoid the Doomfist since I have an Echo.
Yep, and just sticking with her more often is going to give you more survivability as well, just in general, right? Because you can stay outside of the range of both those characters, right? Okay. Reinhardt there was dead, and possibly could have maybe gone for like a Valk res or something of that sort.
This is not your time.
Keep in mind, especially if you have like close spawns like this,
yeah.
Sometimes you might not even want to go for the res if you've won the fight already, because then great, good job. Because it's a 30-second ability, you might not have it for the start of the next fight in that case, right? Or by the time someone else dies. So in that case where you res the Brig, might have just wanted to let her respawn. Because now, for example, think of the ball. Maybe we could have gone to res the ball, right? In that instance.
Yeah.
So there are some times where you would not go for a res, like even though you could. Probably could be Valking right about now, right? Fight's happening.
Yeah. I was waiting for that signal by Res Diva. She immediately has her unlucky. But we got it. We got it.
Yeah, there I think it was because I think we did like a kind of slow approach, and then I just gave them more time to see us coming in, right? So whenever possible, we want to kind of zoom into the body. That way we can like they have less time to react and see that we're going for it, right?
Right.
And then on top of that, we get punched away. Yeah. You can, because of you have your flying, you can probably get, or I think you're fairly certain, right, that you can just fly above his punch range, right? So make sure we're just a little bit higher up while we're going for the res as well.
I probably could have like pressed D and then kind of floated above the platform.
Exactly.
Just things to keep in mind for future reference.
Exactly. And then that's all the part, all about learning and getting better is finding those mistakes and thinking in future scenarios I can do this, right?
I'm not going for that one.
Good decision.
Everyone is there. Okay. Leave us demech. She gonna be able to escape? No. There's a Sombra in there. She did just use hack, but also everyone's blocking my way.
Healing stream engaged.
Mobility increased. 30 seconds remaining.
Oh, pretty nice res.
I probably didn't need the back there.
Yep.
No, there's still some people.
Yeah, so we probably I think it was the fact that like we weren't up significantly in the numbers, but we had a ton of ults that our team was using, right? Like we just overall our team used 5 ults there, right? We also have close spawns. Now we did, it was the last 20 seconds, so it wasn't too terrible.
Oh, hey.
Quite the boost.
Oh.
Well done.
I had res.
This is not the end.
All right.
Sometimes I just gotta,
Victory.
fine, I'll do it myself. Thanos.
All right, so I'm trying to think through here.
Play of the game.
I guess why don't we go through and do this stuff now, and then if we have some time left over, maybe we can get to a game. But I think it's better if we just do this. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to go over the main points of the session, do a quick review, and then wrap it up from there. Open up for some questions as well at the end. So main points. Definitely. Oh, we're not on Zarya. Where am I going? Mercy. Okay. So number one thing, as said by yourself as well, right, is just the awareness of paying attention to what's going on around us, right? Because we're just not paying attention enough. Therefore, we make some poor decisions once in a while, and then it just affects a lot of our gameplay, right? So different areas within awareness. Pay attention to kill feed. Kill feed is 1 to 2 is an advantage or disadvantage. We get aggressive or passive accordingly.
I also need to pay more attention to my tab, because tab also lets you know who's dead and who has ults.
Yeah.
I feel like I could probably use that a bit more.
Yeah.
And I usually am using that a lot more. But
yeah, so when it comes to
I'm
tab
also
usage,
usually talking to myself.
Yeah, but when it comes to tab usage, you want to press, tab at the very beginning of the game to check what team comps are we on, right? Because that's the first thing you're paying attention to, and then the other time you're doing it is in between every single fight, right? You press it. You want to get into the habit of just pressing it once the fight's done, right? That and repositioning, because that's going to allow you to see, did anybody swap characters? What ults does my team have? Because then maybe we can damage boost some of those ults or pocket the people who are ulting. And then as you get more advanced, we won't talk about it now, but when as you get to like a high plat diamond level, then you can start to do like ult tracking, which comes with tab usage as well. But yeah, for now, just pay attention to team compositions, right? Awareness, the kill feed, finishing that one, right? 1 to 2. Then 2 to 3 is a won or lost fight. No ults in won or lost fights. And then look to get super aggressive when you're winning fights, and then look to back out if you can, and if you can't, just let them kill you in a lost fight, right? And then just there's a lot of other things that go into that as well, right? Paying attention to, which team has more ults, which team is using more ults, which team has closer spawns, which team has more health, which team has better positioning. There's a lot of different things that go into that. You could be down 2 people yet still have a significant advantage, like a close spawn, or be down 2 people and have a bunch of ults, right? And it still be winnable, right? Especially if you have, and keep in mind as well that your res can flip those numbers if you get a good one off, right? You could be in a lost fight. You could be, it could be, for example, like, it could be a lost fight with a 6v2, and then you get the res off, and now it's a 6v5, right? You could be even, and then you pull it above, right? And get a kill, right? So it's just res can really flip those around and put you up in numbers, right? On top of that, just generally pay attention to health bars. That's going to allow you to, stop overhealing and whatnot. Pay attention to who we should be on. Pay attention to where's the enemy team at. Make sure we're not tunnel visioning on the people we're healing, but we're looking around ourselves a little bit more often, because we can heal them and do whatever while looking in the opposite direction. Make sure that we are also paying attention to where our teammates are as well, and making sure we're sticking with them. And then just general, paying attention to our surroundings, right? That's coming at number 1. Number 2 is probably going to be our ability usage, right? Now, honestly, within the course of this session, I think I've already seen it getting better, right? We're starting to actually. The big ones were just being conscious about paying attention to when are we dead bodies and thinking, can I go for this res, and just the action of thinking that and paying attention. We've started to see improvement on it already, but it's still that is still something that still needs is still a work in progress and still needs some work. Every time someone dies, paying attention, kill feed. Look at the dead bodies, right? You might not have an opportunity now, but you might within the next 10 seconds. So keep an eye on the body. Say, can I go for it? Do I have a res? Do I have a Valk? Do I have res in the first place? Do I have cover I can use? Is it out in the open? Is there anybody looking at it? Will there be anybody looking at it, right? Are they distracted, right? That's another one, right? That maybe your team's distracting them. Do you have team support, right? Just all these things of paying attention to, can I do it? Or is it worth it, right? Make sure we're not going for reses when you have like close spawns and it's a one fight. So for example there, we can go for the res if we're defending first point, but not if we're on second point, right? Because first point, the spawns are super far away, so we want to have our teammate repositioning with us. But on second point, you're gonna get them so fast that it's not worth it to waste the 30-second cooldown, right? So paying attention to that as well. But just go for it as often as possible. Make sure we're not holding on to it, and we're just using it whenever we can. And then don't go for reses in like when it's seriously lost as well, right? That's another one to pay attention to, right? Just make sure we're not doing it when it's a 2v6, right? Right. Unless it's like absolutely needed. Don't go too risky. Pay attention to those things. And then your guardian angel as well. We talked about the other ones, right? Just make sure we're in control. Try not to spam jump, as that can mess this up a little bit. And then that also is just going to make it easier for them to headshot you. Try not to fly into the middle of their team. You just standard ones. You can cancel your fly. You can fly into them normally. You can jump past them to get to cover better, or to go further away from somebody. And then super jump is the one I'd like to see a lot of work on. Is just you press Control Shift at the exact same time, and then right as you're getting up next to them, you're going to press jump, and that's going to fly you up in the air. That's very useful to get to high grounds, as well as escaping enemies such as flankers and dive, right? Now, number 3, let's think. What was number 3? I don't think it's beam usage, ult usage, or positioning is the question. I think I'm going to put this at positioning. Positioning wise, make sure you're using cover properly, because cover usage and awareness are the big ones that got us killed a lot. Right, just make sure you're using cover. Don't be on the open. Good positioning is the usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover. Make sure we're taking high grounds whenever possible, right? We're not sitting on the low ground. Super easy to do when you have a super jump, right? And then you also want to rotate those there in between fights. Rotate to the best positioning possible in between fights. Make sure that we're not isolating ourselves, but we're positioning ourselves like kind of within as many teammates as possible, right? So instead of being over here, we're being over here, right? The only exception to this would be like if we have a good pocket target who we're going with, right? So like if we have like, for example, a Pharah who's deciding to go off to the right or flying up above them or something like that, and we just want to go with her, right? Just to an example of when we wouldn't do this, but most of the time you're going to want to stick with the big clump of people so you can heal and res and damage as many people as possible, right? And then on from there, is that it for positioning? Think that and then make sure we're rezzing behind corners. Make sure we're not just standing next to cover, but we're also utilizing it. When we're healing, especially, right? And we can peek to see where people are at. But for the most part, whenever we're doing things, we're just using the cover, right? And then sometimes like when we would fly to people, like we kind of understand we should be using cover, but we press the button before we actually got into position. So like, make sure when we're flying in for a res, like I don't know, let's think of a res. We would. Maybe like, we'd fly it over this body right here, and we'd get next to it, and then we'd res right here rather than just being behind the corner. So we want to make sure when we go in for reses, we're intentionally just positioning ourselves as close to cover as possible. Right,
I think I'm decent at that.
Yeah.
It's like if there is a res near a wall, I'm going to try and move around the wall.
Yeah. I think sometimes the issue is, though, I probably say put yourself around the wall first and then go for the res, right? If at all possible, right? Now you can drag reses around the corner even more, but don't start the res here and then go around the corner. get around the corner, then start the res, right? It's just that change in priority there. So now moving on to number 4. Number 4 is going to be at your Valk usage. Make sure that we are not using it in won or lost fights. Make sure we're using it early in fights. Ults that are used first tend to get more value, and then it'll also mean that you're not just losing the fight before you get a chance. Make sure we're not holding on to it. There were a couple times where, where we would just hold on to it for 2 fights or 3 fights, right? Just like kind of kept happening.
Something I've noticed about support ults is that a lot of them are either before fights or reactionary to
defensive
enemy
ultimates. Yeah, which Mercy's ultimate is not a defensive ultimate.
It is right before a fight to keep everyone healed up.
Putting
the advantage even.
Yeah, but
putting the advantage more on your side, not like healed up, but like.
Yeah, but remember it's also not before fights as well, right? We want to use it right after the fight's begun, right? Not before the fight.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. Like.
Okay, yeah.
With Brigitte's ult as well is Brigitte's ult would be more. A bit more before fights, right?
No, it'd be the same thing right as the fight's beginning because you want the constant armor
it used to be that the armor stayed on you until you took damage and it just gotten rid of, but
now it doesn't do
I
that.
haven't picked Brigitte. Okay, gotcha.
So it'd be basically the same timing as Mercy, right? Now, the support ults that you wouldn't do that, you do that with pretty much all the support ults. The ones that you wouldn't do that with would be like Transcendence and Beat, which are pretty unique and which you would use them to counter other ultimates, which most of the other ults you're going to be doing the same thing, like, Brig, Mercy, Bap, Ana, Moira are all going to have the same timing, right? Where it's
one of the things that I noticed a lot of people just kind of forget about is that Transcendence doesn't do jack against like Riptire or High Noon or a lot of those kinds of ults that do instant damage, like Bastion. I noticed so many people that don't realize that, and like on the rare occasions that I play Zen, I do think of that. It's like, should I use Trans here?
Yeah,
it's a Riptire. No point really.
Some people think it makes you invincible, right? That is just kind of the misconception sometimes, but it's just really, really high healing output, right? Yeah. So yeah, we were on Valk usage, just not too early. Right after the fight's begun, the fight begins like mainly when teams are like really close to each other, not in the poke phase, right, where they're just kind of shooting at each other. On top of that, make sure we're damage boosting slightly more often, right? Make sure we're not healing when it's not needed, right? And then also just keep in mind you can go for more risky reses, but that is and then also just like, hover above people and go for the rest is like up here, right? That way the Doomfist can't punch us, right? Like we can do this and hover up this high and then Doomfist just punch underneath us.
What I have tried doing is like super jump-ish when going for a res. So I kind of like go in the air and then float down while resing.
Yeah. That's definitely a use of super jump. You just have to be careful that you're not going too high, right?
Yeah, I've done that. I've done that a couple of times before.
Yeah, so it just would mean that you're doing that jump just slightly earlier rather than slightly later. That way you're not getting as much height with it, right? So yeah, something like I'm not super great at the I don't play Mercy enough to get the fine control down.
That's fair.
Yeah, so it's like something like that, right, where you're not going like all the way up. Now moving on to the last one, would just be beam usage, right? Beam usage, make sure we're not overhealing people when they're full HP or naded, right? But we're swapping the damage boost and then doing something else, like looking for healing or res, right? Then make sure as well that we're pocketing DPS and being on those default targets, right? We're looking for the best default targets and not sticking on like other random tanks. Whereas most of the time we're gonna want to be on the best DPS, and then also pay attention to what things should we be on, like what situational things should we be on, like such as abilities or ultimates, such as like Hog Hook or Hog Ultimate or Genji Ultimate, right? Just what things should we be, what ultimates should we be pocketing? Because sometimes a character might not be good to be on standardly, but we might want to be on them for their ultimate or an ability, right? So keep those in mind, and then I'm pretty sure that's it for our beam usage.
What would you say I'm doing best? What would you say I'm doing best?
Well, I mean, take the order that we just did, flip it around, is the order in which you're doing best in. So you're doing best in so it's, the things that you're doing worst in are the things that you need the most work in, and the things you're doing best in that need the least work in, right?
Right.
So beam usage would be number 1, number 2 would be Valk usage, 3 would be positioning, 4 would be abilities, and then 5 would be the awareness, right? So, yep. And then, yeah, we're pretty much at the end here. Do you have any questions on anything we've talked about? Or just anything else in the game?
Heroes never die.
How is Mercy always a good pick?
She's a very versatile pick. I would probably, like, if you're asking from the perspective of a ranked environment, I'd probably say, yeah, go ahead. In ranked, you can play. Mercy's a pretty versatile character, and in general, you can play any character at any rank just because of it's ranked. And if you get to know a character, you'll know how to play them in situations where they're not so great, right? And you playing the character and one-tricking them kind of makes up for them being not so great in that situation, because you kind of learn how to play them in not so great situations. So she is a pretty flexible character that works in most situations. I'd probably say the composition that she works worst in is a brawl composition, so maybe keep an eye on that. Is brawl composition would be like if you're running a lot of close ranged brawly type of deals. So that'd be like Reinhardt, Zarya, Mei, Reaper, Lucio, type of deal, right? Mercy's not gonna be the best in that because she doesn't. That comp requires kind of like a high healing output, which Mercy does not provide, right? So besides that, and then she, there's obviously like in a team environment or a very like a high ranked environment, then Mercy doesn't become as applicable. But there's Mercy one tricks all the way up to the top 500, right? So you can pretty much run her anywhere.
Right.
Any other questions?
Heroes never die.
Double kill. Triple kill.
Now this must be a surprise to you.
I don't think so.
All right. So then let me stop the recording.